As a brand new pilot with the PowerRay, I thought rather than me being cavalier and just taking it out and dropping it into open water in a bay or an ocean nearby, I probably should spend a little bit of time with it in the backyard in the pool to get a feel for how it performs. So what I'm going to do is take it out to the pool, put it underwater, I'll capture some footage and show you exactly how the HD camera performs, and I'll put a drone up over top of the pool with a top-down shot to give you an idea of the type of speed, maneuverability, and control you'll have over this submersible when you put it in the water. So hang on and we'll get it wet. I thought I'd start off with an overhead shot of the PowerRay in my pool in the backyard. I've got a Mavic up about 100 feet above the pool, and I've got it in high-speed mode just to show you how quick and nimble this thing is underwater. The controls are incredibly responsive. Watch this turn I'm about to make. That PowerRay actually spins on a dime and then immediately picks up speed, and it's a whole lot of fun to swim around at this fast speed. The challenge though is if you're swimming this quickly, I promise you're going to blow past all the fish and underwater vegetation and anything else you're trying to film. You can't really film at this high speed. So I typically use this to get out to the location I want to film and then drop down to either medium or low speed so I can get the exact footage I need. Here's medium speed. I'm actually in the middle setting, and what I'll do is try and trace the outside edge of that pool. And you can see again just how responsive that is. Now I've been swimming about 2 hours with it at this point, so I'm starting to get a little bit more comfortable with the controls, but it's incredibly responsive underwater. Now, much like a boat, when you're swimming through the water, you really can't make those tight turns. It does slide a little bit, but you'll get used to it very, very quickly. But this speed is really useful if you're trying to film things underwater or you're exploring a particular area, and you can make it go even slower than this if you drop down to the low speed, which is what I use for most of the filming I do underwater, so I'm not scaring all the fish away and I'm not banging into stuff down there. The other thing I want to point out is look how that cable that's connecting it to the Wi-Fi receiver floats on top of the water. Now I'm crisscrossing that a couple of times in this clip, and it's not going to get knotted up or tied up or kinked. It floats where it needs to, and then it connects down to the PowerRay underwater to make sure there are no tangles when you're using it. These next two clips were shot later that afternoon as the sun began to set, because I wanted to show you exactly how much underwater illumination you can expect from those headlights. I've got the PowerRay in this first clip set on the medium setting for speed and the middle setting for the lights, and you can see that both of those headlights together provide a nice wide beam of illumination in front of the craft. Each of the headlights individually on the highest setting can provide 450 lumens of brightness, which is more than enough light to illuminate even the darkest areas underwater when you're swimming around. Now you can see as I approach that wall that it casts not only a great beam in front of the craft, but also enough light to either side to light up your peripheral vision in case you need to turn. The second clip has the PowerRay in the fastest speed setting and the bulbs on full, and when I scan along that wall you can see it illuminates quite a distance in front of me. So it throws a lot of light out in front of you to see what's coming, but again I like the fact that it casts a beam to either side, so if there's something off to the left or right, I can get a view of it and then actually spin the craft to go over and investigate. The one thing I will warn you about is that because these lights are so bright in the highest setting, if you're in an area or a lake that has a lot of debris, maybe there's a lot of vegetation or there's algae in there, if you turn those on full brightness, just like when you're driving your car and you turn your high beams on when there's fog, you're going to have a wall of opaque in front of you, so you have to fiddle with it a little bit to find the right setting. In this section I wanted to give you a view of what the PowerRay looks like when it's swimming underwater, and I've got a GoPro on the shallow end of the pool. Now when it comes back around, I want you to pay attention to just how smooth this thing swims underwater. Look how it's maintaining a level plane. And you can change the depth, but the minute you set the depth, it's going to swim exactly where you have it. It's also incredibly nimble. Watch how much control I have when I come around again. I'm actually going to stop it and then spin it on its axes to point in different directions. So you can see that I can investigate pretty much anything underwater, a bulkhead or a rock formation, with ease, with pinpoint accuracy. Now this next part I was going to cut out, but I'll show you what happened. When it comes around again, you'll notice the fish finder actually pops off the bottom, and that was totally my fault because I wasn't sure how tight to screw that on, so I only put it on finger tight. But that's a word of caution there, that you want to make sure you have that in there nice and tight, because if that happened out in the bay, I'd be out there swimming to pick up that fish finder, but it happened in the pool so I could just reach over and pick it up. But just be aware of that. When you put it on there, you want to make sure that it's in there nice and tight. This next section is a view through the camera of the PowerRay, and I'm showing you the right way and the wrong way to sneak up on something. So this first section, I'm actually doing it wrong, where I'm trying to move forward while I'm elevating the PowerRay, but I'm not actually swimming the thing through the water. So you can see how jerky that is, because there's no gimbal control inside the PowerRay. Now when I get to the next section, I'll show you how to do it right. But look at the quality of that camera as I sneak up on Alfred E. Newman there. It's amazing. Now when I make this turn, I'm going to come back in again. Now this time I'm slowly moving through the water as I elevate that craft. So if I change the depth of the craft, see how much smoother that is? And you'll get better with it over time, but it does take a little bit of practice to get to that point. In this section, I wanted to show you just how good this camera is underwater. Now I'm up against the side of the pool with the PowerRay, and I'm slowly pulling back and dropping down. And look at the quality of that image, and it's actually adjusting focus as I pull back. Now as I get closer to the bottom, you'll notice little bits of leaves and twigs down there. It's the end of the season, so I didn't vacuum out the pool, but it's important to watch those because they're very lightweight, and as I pull back slowly, both of those impellers are pushing a lot of water, but if I'm careful, I can back up slow enough where I'm not actually moving that stuff. That's very lightweight stuff, so if it was kicking up a lot of water, it would bounce those all over the bottom of the pool, so you have a ton of control of this craft. I've spent the last week or so in the pool with the PowerRay, understanding how the controls affect its operation, getting good at maneuvering it underwater so I could take it out to a larger challenge like this lake behind me. Now I've got a beautiful afternoon and a gorgeous lake that's just begging to be explored with the PowerRay. I'm going to put it underwater and I'll show you what that footage looks like. I'm also going to put a drone up in the air above it to give you a feel for what it looks like from above so you can see how it maneuvers out in open water. So hang on and we'll get started. Here's a top-down shot of the PowerRay out in the lake. I've got a Mavic up about 100 feet above it. You'll notice I had to submerge a little bit to get this thing swimming. You can't swim this at the surface because the turbines can't push air, they can only push water, so you got to drop down a couple of inches and then start swimming. I'm swimming through the water very fast here at its highest speed, and the lights are on the brightest. You can see the green in the water, a lot of algae and a lot of vegetation down there. Now the next section I'm going to show you what it looks like through the camera. You can't really film at this speed because you're moving too quickly. Here's a view of the camera at that same speed, and you can see all the vegetation and fish just flying past you. It's totally useless footage. This next section, I'm going to slow it down and show you what it looks like at the lowest speed. I've had the chance to swim with the PowerRay an awful lot over these last few weeks, and I've learned a few things about the craft that I thought I would pass along to you as sort of tips and tricks at the end of this clip. Now, some of these will make it easier for you when you first start swimming with this thing. Others will make it a little bit safer to make sure you get the best value you can out of the product. Let me start with the actual preparation after you've been swimming. That's one of the things that I learned pretty early on. So in the instructions, they warn you about making sure that this is bone dry. So if you've had it out in the lake swimming for a while, you bring it in, you're going to put it away in its case. They tell you to dry this connection. What I found is I actually end up drying about 3 feet of the cable because the water that stays on the cable, when I hold it up, will run down the cable and get inside that connection. I also keep the towel handy, dry the entire outside of the craft first, and then I continue to dry this connector as I back it out, because you'll also find water gets down inside the threads on the bottom, and if you only dry it once and pull it off, you're going to get drops of water down inside the craft. So continually dry this as you're backing it out. Make sure it's nice and dry. Once you disconnect this umbilical, I keep it in my hand, I don't drop it on the ground, and I'll get to that in a second. But you also want to dry this connection because there may still be moisture in there that you missed. The other thing you don't want to do is the unit comes with a cap that you're supposed to put on there to protect it from debris and dust and things getting inside there. Don't put this cap on right away, because if there is moisture down in there that you haven't cleaned out and you put this cap on, it's sealed with this little grommet inside. It's going to hold all that moisture inside this unit, which is going to cause a lot of problems for you. So I let it air dry for about an hour. Once I'm sure that it's totally dry, I put the cap on it, then I can put it away in its case and be safe. All right, as far as the cable goes, I've had a lot of people ask me about the cable and cable management. It's a long cable. It's over 200 feet of cable. Even though it's fairly flexible, it is a pain. If you've ever had to roll up 100 feet of electrical cord, you can imagine twice or almost 3 times that length. But I've come up with a really clever solution. It's sort of a DIY project. I'm going to do a separate clip on it that shows you how you can build your own cable management system for this that allows you to play out the cable and retrieve the cable very quickly in a very neat way. So stay tuned for that. I'll do another clip on that. But that whole project cost me less than $15. You can buy everything you need at the local Home Depot. But also with the cable, you want to be very careful that these ends don't get dirty with either, dirt from around the lake or water. So what I end up doing when I wrap it up is I'll take one of the 2 ends, put it in my pocket, hold the other end of my arm, and then wrap up the cable with that cable management system. That way I'm not dragging this through the bushes and across the dirt and through the water, because if dirt and debris gets up inside here, you're going to transfer it over to the actual submersible the next time you use it. So make sure you keep these nice and dry. I'm going to suggest to the company that these actually come with end caps that you can screw on when you're done swimming, and that way you won't have a chance of getting dirt and debris in there. All right, as far as maneuvering the craft itself, it takes some getting used to, I'll be honest with you. I've been flying quads an awful long time, and I've been a boat owner. This operates an awful lot like a boat. You've got 1 jet up front for elevation. You've got 2 jets in the back for control left and right. And it really swims like a boat drives on top of the water. So if you're a boat owner, you know what I mean. You can't make tight turns with this thing. It's going to kind of skid into a turn, so you've got to anticipate that. Also, I found that the elevation part of it is tricky. If you're dead stopped and you hit the elevation to go up or go down, it's going to dip like crazy, and your video is going to show that. There's no way to stabilize that. So what you want to make sure is when you're trying to elevate, you're moving a little bit, even if it's very slow. That planing activity where the water goes over these side fins sort of keeps that camera nice and stable. So as you're moving through the water and you start to elevate, it goes up nice and smooth. So work on that. The other thing is these can get clogged. So you got to be very careful if you're near the shore that you're not running through bushes. And you saw in some of the clips, I couldn't avoid it when I was first learning it, but these get clogged pretty quickly because this is pushing water out the top typically, but sucking water in the bottom. So you've got a huge vacuum cleaner on the bottom here, and really 2 vacuum cleaners here, which are looking for anything in the water they can suck inside those impellers and cause problems for you. So you want to make sure you avoid all that stuff as best you can. Let me talk a little bit about the remote control. So the remote controller is a fairly standard remote. You see these, with most of the quads that are out there. There is a shelf over here if you're going to use a larger tablet. There are 2 screws in the back of it, and I talked about that in the introduction video. You can pull that shelf off and then it'll accommodate a very large tablet. Plenty of power in this thing. I've never had it actually run out of power, but I've had it get low on power. So I carry one of these portable power banks with me, and it turns out that you can actually charge this out in the field. So if you're sitting down, you're driving between locations, if you carry one of these portable power banks, you can plug it in and you can actually charge this thing, again, when you're out in the field. This lasts about as long as the actual submersible will, but sometimes I forget to charge this, so having the power bank with me really makes a big difference. The last thing I'll say about this remote is that there are 3 speeds. There's low, medium, and high. Now, again, you want to have as much fun with this as you can. So the tendency would be to put it in high and just bolt around that lake really, really fast. And that's fun to do, and it's a great thing to do. But if you do that, you're going to find that you're not capturing any video. You're scaring the hell out of anything underwater. So those fish are going to disappear from the area you're filming in. Plus, you're going to run into stuff really quickly. So what I typically do is I'll put it in high, get it out to a location where I think I want to go down. Then I'll drop it to low or medium, drop down to close to bottom, and then swim around in low, because low gives me the ability to sort of pan side to side and see what's down there. I can approach the fish and not scare them, so I get really good video of the fish down there. It's just a better experience all the way. And then when I'm done, I put it back in high, come up close to the surface, and come back. The last thing I'll tell you is they build a lot of protections inside this unit, and what I mean by that is those impellers are metal and they're dangerous. So if this thing were spinning, when you pulled it out of the water, you could get a finger inside there and cause some pretty big damage to your fingers. So there's a locking mechanism inside of it. Now I have to test this, but I'm pretty sure I have this right. When you first put it in the water, it's locked, which means the propellers are not going to spin. You have to physically unlock it. The first couple of times I tried to do that, I did it on dry land. I think there are sensors inside of it that tell that it's in the water, or at least deep enough in the water where you can unlock those propellers. You want to make sure you lock it before you pull it out, because if you make the mistake of going over to it, trying to retrieve it with a stick or some kind of pole, and those propellers are still unlocked, they're going to spin up and you're going to have all kinds of water flying around and really a dangerous situation. So unlock it when you put it in, lock it before you pull it back out, and it'll be a totally safe device. So that's pretty much it for today. I've got a bunch more ideas that I'll build into clips. I'm going to do one on an overview of the controller, all the controls and what the screens look like. I'll talk about the software. I've spent a lot of time transferring video off of the device. That's a little bit tricky, and I'll put a clip together on that. But I wanted to get this one out quickly just to show you sort of how it looks underwater and how much fun you're going to have with this thing, because man, I'm spending way more time swimming and less time filming. That's why my clips haven't been coming out as often as they should, because this thing is just a ball of fun. So stay tuned and we'll get to the next clip soon. But thanks an awful lot for watching, and as always, in this case, happy swimming.